So my name's Jo. I work at the Zoological Society of London. And you might think, London, why is she here on a talk about Wales? But I grew up on the Welsh border, and Wales very much is my heart's home. And together with some incredible partners, this year we have launched Project Siarc. And Project Siarc stands for Sharks Inspiring Action and Research with Communities. And I'm going to give a wee introduction on the project and then hand over to Kat and Jake to talk a bit more about some elements of it. So, we all know that Wales has an incredible marine biodiversity. Beneath the waters of our seas, we've got a huge variety of life and a huge, incredible ecosystem of which sharks, skates and rays play a really important part of. In total, we have 26 species of sharks, skates and rays, and just to give a snapshot of a few of them here, this is a bullhuss feeding on a baited underwater video camera, and it's Jake's footage, not mine. But of these species of shark, we've got sharks, skates and rays, we've got 26 species which use a whole variety of coastal habitats in and around Wales. We've got those which spend a lot of their time close to the seabed, like the thornback ray here. We've got those which are more pelagic, and we've also got those which spend just a part of their life history in Welsh waters and move in huge migrations across the sea. At Project Siarc, we're really trying to work together, this shouldn't go on to loop, to better understand and safeguard this whole host of incredible elasmobranchs. That's the group we call sharks, skates and rays together. And to do that, our aim is to catalyse links between fishers, researchers, communities and government to collaborate and safeguard elasmobranchs in Wales and therefore help support a green recovery. We've got 4 main objectives that we're working on as part of Project Siarc. First of all, to improve the management of 2 SACs by addressing critical data gaps using fisher integrated research. This is quite a wordy aim, but essentially a lot of our elasmobranch species, so those sharks, skates or rays, are very little understood. We don't know where they're going, we don't know what habitats they're using. And by working alongside fishers and coastal communities, we're going to gather a whole host of information about elasmobranchs in Wales to better understand their association with currently protected areas and other parts of Welsh waters. Secondly, we want to diversify opportunities for involvement in marine conservation in Wales. The people who've joined tonight, it's fantastic to see so many of you here, and what we want to be able to is to reach out to wider communities, make sure that everyone has the same ability to access the marine environment and get inspired by the incredible wildlife that we have beneath our waves. Obviously, it's a bit difficult when you're talking about marine species because they're hidden under somewhat murky water. It's not quite the Caribbean, but if you get underneath that, we're hoping to bring out the incredible species as part of the project. As such, our third objective is to generate a wider appreciation of the underwater environment in Wales. It's inspired me as part of my job for the last couple of years, and I genuinely think we've got such an important environment here in Wales, and we really want to use our elasmobranchs, so our sharks, skates and rays, to better promote and to be a flagship for what incredible marine diversity we have under the water. And then finally, our last objective is to connect the next generation with the marine environment. And we've got a range of activities working with schools and coastal communities to help the younger generation to learn more about our seas at a very early stage. So Project Siarc, it launched in February of this year, and it's a big collaboration of different partners. So it's led by ZSL, the institution I work in, alongside Natural Resources Wales. and it's being delivered by a whole host of institutions as well. Angel Shark Project Wales, which Jake's going to talk about next, is going to be underneath the Project Siarc umbrella. So we're still working very much focused on angel sharks, and that's all coming into the Project Siarc wider project. And I've got to say at this moment, a big thank you to our funders, the National Lottery Heritage Fund, On the Edge, and Welsh Government's Nature Networks Fund, which has enabled all of this stuff to happen and supported the project to date. So our work in Project Siarc is initially going to focus on two SACs. So these are special areas of conservation, one in North Wales, the Penllyn a'r Sanau, and one in South Wales, Carmarthen Bay and Estuaries SACs. And we're going to focus on 4 flagship species. We've got the angel shark in the top left corner of your screen. And this is an incredible species. It's critically endangered and one of the rarest species in Europe. But we've got a really important population of this species here in Wales, which Jake's going to talk to you about next. We've got the common stingray, which is quite, again, another uncommon species to Wales. However, historically, it was thought that it had medicinal properties when it was boiled down. And we've got a lot of historical information in Wales about how stingray used to be used in historical times. Next along, we've got taupe. And this species is a very migratory species, and actually it moves around in schools. And we think that in Wales there could be packs of taupe, some of which are separated into different sexes. So we think that the females might go to a particular area and the males might go to another area. So we're really trying to get some more data to better understand this. And then finally, we've got the spurdog, and this species gets its name from a small spine found at the bottom of the fin, and that small spine is actually venomous, and it's used by the spurdog as a protection mechanism against other predators in the marine environment. So this again is another species which moves around in packs in waters across Wales. We chose these 4 species as our flagship species because they all really closely associate with the bottom habitat. So we're better understanding what species are using the seabed and how they interact with those protected habitat features in the special areas of conservation. So Project Siarc, we've got a whole host of things happening over the next couple of years. We're working very closely with fishers because they've got such an important information on where these different elasmobranch species are moving, and we've developed a big relationship thanks to the Welsh Fishermen's Association and Welsh Federation of Sea Anglers as part of Angel Shark Project Wales, which we hope to expand in this project. We've got a whole work package on diversity and inclusion, which we talked about at the beginning, really trying to break down those barriers which prevent some people from accessing the marine environment and work out ways to get a greater range of people excited about the sharkscapes and rays found here in Wales. We'll be putting down more of these baited underwater video systems, and then we'll be putting all of that footage and all of that information onto an instant wild platform. So this is something which we're going to be asking people around Wales to help us identify what sharks, skates, rays, as well as other fish species they see in the footage, and really bring the underwater world to your computer, wherever, or your iPhone or your smartphone, wherever you are, to see what's beneath the waves. As part of the scientific research, we'll be collecting water samples to identify what species are going through the water using a cool DNA technique. We'll be working very closely with citizen scientists on egg case hunts and other bits and pieces which Kat's going to talk about in a couple of minutes. We'll be using all this data and analysing and better understanding elasmobranchs in Wales, as well as providing it back to the school children. So we've got a whole host of school programmes alongside Swansea University, who's doing some really cool work with 3D printing. We'll be trying to raise awareness of sharkscapes and rays as much as we can over the next couple of years. And we'll also be bringing different researchers together to share ideas and findings and collaborate more closely together. And then lastly, it's actually the first event for Project Siarc. Last month, we were able to complete a dissection of an angel shark. This animal washed up on the beach in Wales in 2021. And we were able to complete the dissection to better understand some of the biology of the species, which is really exciting. And all of this will be tied together with some project management, hopefully successfully. But that's a quick overview. I'm going to pass over to Jake now, but there's so much more information about the project on our website, which is www.projectsiarc.com or Project Siarc for Welsh language as well. And thank you so much for all coming along today to find out a bit more about our work.
Cool. Thanks, Joe, for providing an overview of Project Siarc, which is an exciting new project. And as Joe said, what I'm going to be doing is providing information about the unique shark species, the angel shark that we have off the Welsh coast, and we've been working. Oh no, stop sharing from it. That we've been working to better understand for the last couple of years. So hopefully this is all loaded up and people can see this. So I'm Jake Davis, and I'm the project coordinator for Project Siarc now, and it's 1 second, I'm just making sure that everyone can see this. I think it's gone a bit slow. Cool. And yeah, previously the project coordinator for Angel Shark Project Wales. But I thought I'd start it all off with what is an angel shark, and usually we show really nice footage of an angel shark out in the Canary Islands. However, last year I was really fortunate to become one of the first people to record an angel shark underwater around the UK coast, and that happened off the Welsh coast to make it even more exciting. And it was an absolute privilege to be able to dive and spend time with an angel shark underwater of Wales, and hopefully it's the first of many more encounters. But it was incredibly a chance encounter. So every time I see the footage, it brings back that exciting memory of seeing one. But as you can see, they're not like your normal shark species. They're flat bodies, and they've been well adapted to their life on the bottom of the sea floor. And hopefully it's flowing. Hopefully the video is running. So you can see that they have large pectoral fins, which they then use to bury themselves in the sand. Hopefully that doesn't hold up too much, but I'll let it buffer a little bit more. So they use these large pectoral fins to then bury themselves in the sand and flick sand or mud over the top of them, where they then lay and wait for any unsuspecting prey. And they're not very fussy. They'll eat anything that really can go above their head or that fits in their mouths. So once they're in place, they'll sit there and wait. And they've got eyes positioned on top of their head, and they've got spiracles, so they can pump water over their gills and wait for as long as it takes for food to come to them, which is a really good way of hunting, especially in a place like this where sometimes the sand is a bit barren. But when I was fortunate to see this individual, I was also fortunate to capture what makes it so unique, and I'm really hoping that the video is showing properly. It's a bit jumping around. If not, you can watch it afterwards. We've got it on YouTube. And sorry about that, that's no reason. Let's see if it works now. But at the end of the video, I was really fortunate to capture that moment where they used lightning fast strike to capture some of the prey. In this case, it was a small goby, and there was quite a few gobies that were around that evening. So I think the best way to watch the video is to head on YouTube, and you'll find the video there. But it just provides an overview of what an angel shark looks like and what makes them so unique. They're perfectly adapted to their life on the seafloor, and that perfectly well camouflaged top coloration into the sand too just tops off that bit. So after tonight, if you want to just head over, or someone might drop the link into the chat so you can see the video better. But angel sharks are found in the Northeast Atlantic and Mediterranean part of the Black Sea, and over the last 50 years their range in this area have decreased to a main hotspot area in the Canary Islands But in recent years, populations have been occurring with some of the findings around the Mediterranean, here in Wales on the west coast of Ireland. And it was back a few years ago that we set up Angel Shark Project Wales, but as you can see, there's lots of projects all sat within the Angel Shark Conservation Network, involved in better understanding angel sharks across their range. But it's not just talking about Angel Shark Project Wales, which we started off initially back in 2017. Here's a little timeline of when it all started as a pilot project. And then in 2018, we started phase 1 of the project. And that was built on the information that we gathered during the pilot project, where I was working closely with some of the fishers that we knew in the local area, and they shared their knowledge that angel sharks were still present off the Welsh coast, and that angel shark sightings were still occurring over that time. So then over the years, we've had quite a few exciting highlights, and this just goes up to February last year, but since then, there's been a lot more exciting elements. I'm just going to be talking about some of these parts during tonight's talk as well, because it's been really fortunate that the amount of information that's been shared to us through communities and coastal communities and fishers, especially off the Welsh coast, have really provided an insight into angel shark history off the coast, but also recent records, and helping us better understand angel shark ecology, biology and populations off the Welsh coast. And as part of that 3-4 years that we were working on the project, we developed a Wales Angel Shark Action Plan back in the summer of 2020. And this provides a vision of a thriving population of angel sharks in Wales. And this was done with a variety of NGOs, university and government organisations come together to create this vision and the ways to help work towards this vision for angel sharks off the Welsh coast. We're going back to Angel Shark Project Wales, and the aim of it was to safeguard angel sharks in Wales with fishers, coastal communities, and using heritage education and research. And in the background, you can just see just some of these amazing photos that were shared with us as part of Angel Shark Project Wales, and each one providing a really exciting insight of what angel sharks in the past. Unfortunately, they were landed, but for us, these images really do provide us with a lot of information, and which weren't then lost over the years. So with fishers, we work very closely with them, and thanks to the fisher associations such as the Welsh Federation of Sea Anglers and the Welsh Fishermen's Association. We worked with a variety of different sectors, so we work closely with the commercial, charter boat skippers and the recreational anglers, because each one, even though they're fishing majority of the time, they also were able to provide us with a variety of angel shark records. So with this fisher engagement element, it involved informal interviews, so we just sat down and had coffee and then had a chat about angel sharks and any other shark species or fishing in general off the Welsh coast, because we wanted to build up that picture of angel shark records, but also what was happening in terms of fishing along the coast over those time periods, over their time as a fisher themselves. So 73 different fishers from a variety of different sectors provided angel shark records to us, and which then ended up being over 2,200 records, which dated back over 60 years. And of all our records, 97% of it were from fishers. With the citizen science element, we also did angel shark history roadshows back in 2019, which provided some really exciting information about angel sharks off the Welsh coast. And this was also done by a press release. And then what we mentioned earlier about the citizen science element, where we recruited citizen scientists, and there's a really exciting part where they scoured the archives and libraries for angel shark records. And we never know, from online research, we kind of had a few articles that were already digitized, but we were really surprised by the amount of information that these citizen scientists brought together to us. Of the 15 volunteers that we recruited, they did 233 hours worth of scouring through these locations and brought out 158 additional records. And the stories that came within, though, that were really special. And there's a few newspaper stories that really stood out. And for us, this was definitely one of them. And this is back in 1918, where an angel shark was caught in Barmouth. And back then, it was still considered a rare fish species from their view, because but they brought it ashore and put a tent on it, and then got people to pay and to see this unusual looking fish, of which then the money went to the Red Cross. And it's a really exciting element because it just provides, there's a bit of a community element to this species too, not just used for food or other reasons. There was actually almost an entertainment element. And without this research, we would have never had this understanding or importance of what one species could mean to some areas. Other information also brought in the fact that their skin was so tough. They used to use a sandpaper to polish ivory, but also on the shields for Roman shields as part of protection, which is another quite interesting use for their skin. But again, it shows their cultural importance as a species too. In Wales, we also discovered there was 15 different names for angel sharks that varied from angelfish to devilfish to puppyfish, monkfish, which is the traditional name for angel sharks, and in some areas still is referred to as monkfish, not to be confused with anglerfish, which is actually a fish species, and that's the fish that is sold commercially these days, whereas angel sharks aren't sold commercially as they're a protected species and aren't supposed to be landed or targeted since 2008. And these names are quite interesting. And in Welsh, the name for angel shark is Maelgi, which we haven't really unlocked where it came from, but there are some historical links which may be worth looking into further. And these are just some of the names. And one of the really quite interesting things is how angel sharks illustrations have changed over time. From this, a literal monkfish, and then over time, we can see through different drawings and paintings, for example, like this one, some more detailed anatomical drawings where they've had a bit more time with the specimens and really made the details in there, and these from natural history books by the end. And this one really showing a lot of detail with different dorsal and ventral drawings to show description of the species itself. So it's been really exciting. Now for the records, we've got over 2,200 of them. Again, these are dating back to 1812, but the majority fall from 1970 onwards, and where we can see that more records were between 1970s and 1996, and this is due to different changes in fishing around the Welsh coast. And looking into it further, these are changes that are due to a variety of different reasons. So it doesn't say anything about the population of angel sharks off the Welsh coast, it just says that fishing has changed, and this is something that we looked into a little bit more, but we haven't got time to go into tonight. But it's really interesting, the fact that there's these changes, and we don't know what's happened with the population specifically. But unfortunately, we run out of time a little bit more, which I can't go through everything, but we've mentioned a few things. So I'll just go to the end for here. If you haven't already though, we also created an Angels of Wales ebook, and it's an exciting online tool for Key Stage 2, 7 to 11-year-olds to provide information about angel sharks, the project, and the marine underwater environment too. And this was followed by some Meet the Scientist sessions. And Joe mentioned, as part of Project Siarc, with the education element, we'll be hoping to carry out some of those later in the year. And I have to run through. Unfortunately, we can't get through it all, but thank you all for listening. And if you've got any questions towards the end, please let us know. We're all excited to hear if you have any more. And I'm sorry, it's started to overrun a bit, but thank you again. It's on to Kat next, who's going to talk about the great egg case hunt.
Thanks, Jake. I still can't believe you managed to film that juvenile in North Wales as well. It's incredible. So I'm just going to bring my presentation up. There we go. Hopefully that's all okay. So hello everyone. My name is Kat Gordon. I'm Senior Conservation Officer at the Siarc Trust. I'm going to talk to you a bit more about the Great Egg Case Hunts, which is a citizen science project that we've had running for nearly 20 years now, and we're getting involved with Project Siarc and trying to encourage more records of these mermaids' purses to be submitted from around Wales. For you who aren't as familiar with the Siarc Trust, we're based down in Plymouth, Devon. We're a small charity. We were established back in 1997, and that was at a time when sharks received very little to no management at all. So it's come an awful long way in the past 25 years, and we need to keep reminding ourselves that. Although we're quite a small charity, we do work internationally. So we kind of work within the UK, across Europe, throughout the Mediterranean, and are also present in international fora as well. So we do have quite a large remit. It's quite a fine balance, the work we do, in terms of some species can withstand more fishing pressure than others. So we're heavily involved in fisheries management to make sure those species have correct management in place. Other species really can't withstand fishing pressure, so like the angel shark, the critically endangered angel shark, and so we also have to look at species protection where species need full protection from commercial activity and recreational activity as well. So it really is a fine balance. And on top of that as well, we've got a number of citizen science projects where we try and get the public engaged in shark conservation as well. And that's really key for us, especially within the UK, to better understand that we have got shark skates and rays in our waters as well. So again, just a recap, or for those of you who aren't as familiar with sharks, they have a number of different reproductive strategies depending on the species. There's over 1,200 species of shark skates, rays, and then we've got the chimeras as well. So some species give birth to live young, as mammals do. So these are viviparous species, and that includes those such as the blue shark. On the scale of sharks, blue sharks are actually quite fecund. They produce kind of 4 to 135 pups. Sharks generally are long-lived, produce few young, and are quite kind of vulnerable to fishing pressure. The blue shark is one of those species that can actually withstand a bit more fishing pressure than some, so they're one that require management. On the flip side, you've got the short-fin mako, who produce fewer pups as well and are much more vulnerable. We've got species that produce egg cases that are retained internally. They then hatch within the female and are born as if they're live young. So that includes species such as the whale shark. And then we've got our oviparous species, so our egg-laying species, like this small spotted cat shark or lesser spotted dogfish. And this is the egg case that she'll lay. So a lot of you will hopefully be familiar with these. I don't know if you can tell from the photo, but they do have curled tendrils on each corner of those of that capsule, and the female will swim round and round something like seaweed as she's laying, and it will those tendrils will act as rope, and it will tie it onto the seaweed, so it will kind of keep it nice and anchored as the embryo develops within. So around 40 species of sharks and skate produce in this way, so it's quite a lot. And that covers 5 different families as well. So our skate, those chimeras, cat sharks, of which we've got 3 species in the UK that will produce this way, and then carpet and zebra sharks and horn sharks as well. So the egg cases are quite varied in their form. You can look at the size, the shape, the different features, and that will help distinguish which species actually laid it. They'll also, I mean, depending on where you're hunting throughout the UK, throughout the world, some of them you'll find washed up on the sand, some will be tucked in amongst the seaweed, so you'll find them in different locations on the beach. So in terms of the skate life cycle, the female will lay the skate egg case quite often, for a lot of species, quite often on the seabed. Those kind of pointed horns on each corner will be buried within the sand. They've got a sticky mucus membrane over them that will attract sand and detritus, bits of seaweed, things like that. And it will help weigh the egg case down, and it will help camouflage it as well as it's developing. So different species will be developing for a different length of time. Something like the thornback ray, it's maybe around 5 months or so. Something like the flapper skate, which is much bigger, it's thought it could potentially be up to around 2 years. So they're quite a long development time in these capsules. So you can see the photo there where the illustration, sorry, where the skate starts to get kind of so big in the egg case that the wings will fold over its body because it hasn't got any more room to grow, and the tail will point into one of the horns. And that actually acts as a pump. It will beat backwards and forwards, and there's small slits that are along the horn that allow lovely fresh oxygenated seawater into the capsule and allow waste to leave as well. So they'll beat their tail backwards and forwards and bring in that oxygenated water. Once they've got to the point that there's no more room in the egg case and the yolk sac's been fully absorbed and they're ready to go, then the opening at the top between the horns will open, and the young skate will swim out, and that's a perfectly formed miniature version of the adult. They have to fend for themselves. They have to avoid predators, find their own food, so they don't get any parental care, and they're on their own from that point onwards. After they've done all of that wiggling to get out of the egg case, the capsule will quite often become loose from its resting place, and they're also much lighter. So they'll get picked up by the waves and the currents, and they'll usually make their way to the shore, where you can find them washed up in the strand line. So the area where all the seaweed is, and all the flotsam and jetsam, and the whelk eggs, crabs, shells, things like that. So that's always a good place to hunt when you're out looking for these egg cases. Once they're dried out, they're much lighter, so they can get picked up and blown to the back of the beach. So looking in sand dunes and grasses where they get trapped is also a good bet as well. So that's the skate life cycle. Looking at some of the cat sharks, again, very similar stage. This one just shows how the yolk sac will start shrinking and the embryo will start growing. I think it'll be too small to see, but on stage 2, where it's got that egg yolk, there's a very small blip in the top corner of that, and that's the embryo that's just starting out. And then it's only around stage 4 there where you can see that it's starting to look a bit shark shaped. And it's got its gill filaments that are developing on the outside of the body, so they kind of wave around. They've got a nice big surface area to again trap all of that oxygenated seawater. Stage 6, that yolk sac's really starting to shrink, and by stage 7, it's been completely absorbed, and the cat shark is ready to hatch out of that egg case. So you can see on this one, this is the nurse hound or bull huss. When they're laid, they're kind of nice, shiny, and almost see-through. So especially using a torch behind it, you can really see the yolk sac inside, and quite often you can see the embryo dancing around as well. So this one helps to show the size of it. So the nurse hound egg case is around 8 to 10 centimetres or so. The hatched cat shark will be around 16 centimetres. So again, they're nicely kind of curved up in the egg case in a U shape as they develop, and then will pop out of the top once they're ready to go. So this just helps show the difference between how well they can become camouflaged. So the egg cases on the left are freshly laid, nice shiny egg cases, no fouling on them at all, and they really do stand out. And then the one on the right has been developing for several months, and it starts attracting seaweed and bryozoans and different growths and things, and it really helps to camouflage the egg case, making it more difficult to spot. This species takes around 9 months or so for them to hatch. They can still get predated on. Quite often, if you find an egg case that's got a really small, perfect hole in it, it will be a mollusk that's drilled into it to get that nutritious egg yolk. So the cat shark ones are slightly more obvious if you're a snorkeler or diver to see. The skates and ray egg cases can be a little trickier to see. This one's actually a thornback ray egg case that was seen up in Scotland by a shark scientist who, again, like Jake with the angel shark, knew what they were looking for as well, because they are incredibly well camouflaged. So we do ask people to record any sightings that they've made underwater as well. So if you're out snorkeling, diving on an SUP or kayak, open water swimming and you encounter any, then you can still record those through to the Great Egg Case Hunt. So these are the different species that we've got throughout the British Isles and kind of covering Northwest Europe as well. Some species are more common than others. We've got the spotted ray, the thornback ray, and the small spotted cat shark are the most common species, and they can be found on all British coastlines near enough. We've got species like the small-eyed ray, the cuckoo ray, the blonde ray. They're generally a bit more focused in southwestern Wales, but not exclusively so. It's just that's where you're more likely to find them. The undulate ray is more restricted to the south coast of the UK. You're not as likely to find that in many other regions. The starry skate's more on the North Sea coast. So again, you're less likely to find it unless you're on the east coast of the UK. The flapper skate and the blue skate were previously known as the common skate, and that was long confused as a single species, and it was only around 2010 when that was actually formally recognised as being two distinct species. We've got the flapper skate that's the more northerly of the two. If you go up to Orkney and some of the Northern Isles and west coast of Scotland, then there's a stronghold for that species there. And if you go to some of those beaches, you're tripping over their egg cases. You can find them in their hundreds. And this is a critically endangered species. And you go anywhere else in the world and you're very unlikely to encounter it. Except one was recorded in Aberystwyth a month or two back, which is really exciting. That's the first record from Wales that we've had confirmed to the Great Egg Case Hunt. So that's really exciting. We're not sure yet whether that was blown down in the storms or whether it's a female that could have been nearby laying. So keep your eye out for that one. They're actually can show afterwards, but they're huge egg cases. So they can look a bit like bark, but if you know what you're looking for, then you shouldn't miss them. The blue skate is a slightly more southerly distribution than the flapper, and we've really not had many of those egg cases recorded to the project. There's been less than 10, and with that there's been a couple from Cornwall from the north coast, there's been a couple from Scotland, and there's been about 3 from South Wales, so on the Gower and in Pembrokeshire. So although there's not very many species, it's kind of giving fairly good indication of where you are likely to find them. And then the white skate is a Celtic sea species. So we're looking at mainly the southwest coast of Ireland where we've had those ones reported from. Then with the cat sharks, like I said, the small spotted cat shark's one of the more common ones that you can find on most coastlines. The nurse hound is again southwestern Wales, and it's probably the most predominant species that you would find on the Welsh coast. And then the blackmouth cat shark is one of the smaller cat shark species. That one, again, we've had very few records come through. It's a deeper water species. The eggs are laid much lower down in the water, so they aren't washed up quite so often. So we're really pleased that we've managed to get this poster translated into Welsh as part of Project Siarc, and we launched that today. So if you're out and about on some of North Wales Wildlife Trust's egg case hunts, then they've got those to pass on to you all, so you can easily identify what you've been finding. Some of the other resources we've got a junior egg case ID guide, so made all the more fun with googly eyes. So you should still be able to tell the features of the egg case and figure out which species they are based on that one. And as part of that series, we've also got a junior egg case ID trail as well. So that's got the characters that you can print out and stick around your garden, your house, the school, anywhere that you want to do an egg case trail if you can't get to the beach as well. So in terms of when it comes to recording your finds, you can do them a few different ways. We've got our online recording form on the website. So if you go to eggcase.org, then you should navigate to that fairly easily. If you add all of your details, so where you found it, if you upload a photo, we can just double check the identification of what you found. We're excited that again, we will be developing that web form in Welsh language version as well. And if you just make sure, if you do find any egg cases, that you just pop in Project Siarc as the organisation, then we can know that you're recording it through this project as well. So as well as the online recording form, we did have an app. if you've got the app, you may have noticed it's not functioning quite as it should be. So that one's coming offline, and we are developing a new citizen science app, which will be available hopefully very soon, in the next few months at least, so keep an eye out for that. Or you can send parcels of egg cases through to the office and we can add them up that way. The maps, the project's been going since 2003, so the maps look fairly chaotic. The red ones are where we've seen photos or specimen. The blue, we haven't had verification of those. We're not going to ditch the records, but it still helps to be able to split them out if we need to. And the yellow are the underwater records, so a lot of these are from scientific surveys as well. We do accept records from all over the world as well, so we are getting more from the US and Australia in particular. We don't necessarily have ID materials for everywhere, but if you're on holiday and you find some, drop us a line and we'll always try and help out with ID. And egg case hunting really is for all ages as well, from any generation. It gets extremely competitive. You'll want to be the first one to find an egg case on the beach. You want to be the first one to find a new species as well. So the project, the first 10 years of the project kind of ticked over fairly nicely and slowly and fairly calmly, and then it got to around 2016 and it started exploding. So we get on average around 35,000 records a year now. I think this is the rise of social media, the development of the app and things like that. Last year was a pretty quiet year. Don't know if we can put that down to COVID, as 2020 wasn't too bad, but this year we're already nearly overtaking it within the first quarter. So, like I said, the breakdown of species, thornback rays, small spotted cat sharks and spotted rays, that makes up around 70% of the records. So they really are the most predominant species. And then we did work out our top 5 recorders. So I had to include this in here, as North Wales Wildlife Trust made an appearance at number 5, almost made it to number 4. So just a few more egg cases. So just wanted to put that in there for incentive this year to get out there and make sure you're finding more than ever, so you can bump up the leaderboard for this year. So if you've ever been out and picked up an egg case, thank you. Thank you if you've found your way through to the Great Egg Case Hunt as well. One egg case might not seem like it's a huge deal, but together that all creates data. So we've got 300,000 records now. So it's going to really help us build a better picture of species presence and diversity. And this year we're really going to drill into that database and interrogate it a bit more and hopefully have some exciting findings out by the end of the year. So watch this space on that front. And finally, obviously, thank you to Project Siarc and everyone involved and all of the funders as well. As we're really excited that we can develop these resources into Welsh and engage more with North Wales Wildlife Trust and the events that you guys are going to be running, especially over the next couple of weeks for Easter. So thank you very much. She'll stop sharing and pass back to Nia as well now.
Lovely, thank you everyone. Thanks to the 3 of you, and Kat, I can say that Dawn is hell-bent on getting Project Siarc onto number 1 this year. So we'll need everyone here to sort of chip in and get out and have a look at what's out there. So we've got a bit of time now to, if you've got any more questions. We've had a few questions coming through, so if you've got any more, now's the time to send them over. So what I'm going to do is just going to go back to some of the messages, some of the questions that have come. So I'm going to start with Rihanna, actually, who asks, and I'll ask this to Kat, is are all sharks dangerous?
No, not at all. So a lot of the species, the cat sharks, they're benthic species. They live on kind of quite often will live near the seabed. They'll eat things like crabs. So if you're a crab, yes, they're dangerous, but generally you're going to be okay. Most of the species we've got in the UK, we've got around 30 to 40 species or so, depending how far out you go, how deep you go. A lot of them are further offshore species, and you're not likely to encounter many on a day trip to the beach. If you do, then you are incredibly lucky. So no, I mean, there's some of the larger predatory sharks.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, the larger ones, yeah.
Yeah, so poor beagle, short fin mako, white sharks, bull sharks, tiger sharks. There are large predatory sharks. But again, it comes down to respecting these large animals and trying to not necessarily avoid them, but to interact safely with them. So making sure you're out there with appropriate tour operators if you're on diving trips or trips out to go and see these individuals. So it's making sure you're kind of interacting safely with these animals.
Thanks for that anyway.
Great, thanks. Okay, so we've got another question, and I'm going to direct this to Jo, but any three of you could answer it, I think. Which parts of North Wales do species like stingrays and sharks hang out with? Are there particular hot spots, or are there places that...
I'm going to pass straight to Jake because he lives in North Wales, and I feel like that's a more appropriate response to...
No, thank you, and thanks for the question. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the species are found all along the Welsh coast. If you talk about stingrays, we don't know a lot about them, but they do pick up in a few areas of the coast. Cardigan Bay and Bristol Channel seems to be an area historically, and in recent years as well, where stingrays have been seen. For things like angel sharks, we've seen them all along the coast too, Cardigan Bay and Swansea.
Yeah, I was going to say,
historically.
is there any like an Anglesey area at all?
That's one area we haven't had that many records. There's been a few more south in Carnarvon Bay, not for stingrays for that area, but for angel sharks there have been. But spur dog tend to be a species that are found off Anglesey because the water tends to be deeper around that area compared to some of the other bays in Wales.
Oh, okay, thanks for letting me know.
I mean, leading on from this, Jake, while you're on this, is your angel shark that you recorded, how deep was that?
It was about 6-7 meters, so it's not hugely deep, but not in the shallow areas, but right in the shallows either. About half a mile off the coast.
We do know that there has been one spotted by a snorkeler, and I believe I'm sure I saw him, that he's online, and that was just off Shell Island, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've seen that he is here, and yeah, we've got the record that he's had of the angel shark encounter. That was really exciting one.
Great, awesome, thank you. Okay, let me just check. Okay, Richard was one of the citizen scientists for the Angel Shark project, and he's asking, is there any evidence as yet of any particular territory or migratory based movement in Scotina? Who would that be?
So we are trying to study that at the moment, and we actually were able to put a satellite tag on an angel shark last summer. However, it looks like the battery may not have lasted. We're still holding our hopes that we're going to get the data soon on that. So we're trying to understand that through tagging work for the angel shark, and we're hoping to do that again this summer and next year, but also through genetic data. So that angel shark dissection that I talked about, we take genetic samples from those animals, and we're going to compare the genetic samples from angel sharks from the UK with angel sharks in the Canary Islands and angel sharks in the Mediterranean, to see if genetically they're one big connected population or if they're smaller pockets of different populations. So using that genetic approach plus some tagging approach, we're hoping to find out. We still haven't got a definitive answer yet, but watch this space. In the next few years, I really hope we have some data to share, and we'll of course let everyone know who's been involved in the project too.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so we've got the questions coming in now. So okay, so Charlotte, after doing an echo send, what was the best thing to do with the cases? I've always wondered if leaving them on the beach might mean they get recorded again by someone else. And this one I'll go to Kat, and we're going to be pushing everyone to go out over the next couple of weeks. So this is a good question.
Yeah, so egg cases don't have a secondary purpose, not like seaweed that will break down, or pebbles and shells that will also break down to form the sand and the structure of the beach. Egg cases aren't used again by any other organisms that we know of. So we're okay with if you want to take them off the beach, obviously checking that they are definitely empty first. If it's got a live embryo inside, you want to be putting it back in the water, and ideally trying to anchor it down so it doesn't just keep washing in on the next tide as well. So that's easier for the cat sharks that have got those curled tendrils, and you could potentially tie it onto something. But for the skate ones, it's just trying to gently wedge it somewhere without squashing it as well. If it's got something inside that is no longer alive, you still don't want to be taking it home, because it will start getting a bit stinky as well. So yeah, as you said, if you leave them on the beach, you might have someone else who's walking up behind you and recording them a second time as well, so you almost get double accounting of them. So I tend to pick them up as I go along, but I now have a huge stockroom full of empty egg cases that aren't getting used. I'm at least in the position that I can send them out to schools and different organisations who want some egg cases, so they can use them for educational purposes. But I also know that there's many people who've collected hundreds of egg cases that are desperately trying to put them, you know, in the garden waste or the compost bins, and they don't break down. So they might kind of become a bit degraded and break up a little bit, but they don't actually break down. So yeah, if you take them off the beach, at least if you're walking up one way and then back down again, you know that you're not going to be counting them twice. I think that also ties in. I see Rebecca's got a question as well about what do you do if you come across an egg case that's in the early stages of development. So like I said, if you've found one that's still obviously got something inside, then try and put it back in the sea. For some of the species, I mean, these ones, especially small spotted cat shark, they can be quite pale, so you can normally hold them up to the light and see if there's something inside, and you quite often will then see, you can probably gauge if it's still living or if it's probably past its best. But we'd always encourage you to double check before you then take them off the beach.
Nice, thank you. And I guess this leads on cars. Megan Stone, who's saying she'll be actually out this weekend with Charlotte Keane and the Ocean Rescue Champion mentors to Hugh Beach, where they'll hopefully be collecting some egg cases there. So that'd be great. But she's asking, in terms of the videography evidence of sharks, skates and rays, what specifically will you be looking for from the videos? I'm guessing possibly their behaviour, abundance, ? And do you have these cameras dotted in specific places around the Welsh coast within the SAC zones? Either Joe or Jake, I guess.
Yeah, Joe or Jake, I guess. Mine might be like a two-parter. But for the cameras, they're deployed for an hour at a time. So they're deployed, we go out, we deploy them, drop them off, because they're baited remote underwater video systems, and then they'll sit at the bottom and record an hour's worth of footage before we then collect them again and download the footage. And with the data we're collecting in quite a variety, we're looking at different habitats and different species associated to those habitats. And also with the footage from previous pilot studies of it, you can pick up some interesting behaviours, as well as using stereo grubs, which we will be using, where they have two lasers, where we can collect some quite exciting data on lengths as well. That provides a lot more information. But it's a variety of different things that we'll be collecting as we do that, but habitat and association was definitely one of the bigger links.
Ace, thank you. Okay, so I think the last two questions we haven't answered sort of all tie in together and lead to the sort of next bit really, is that Rhys is asking that he lives in South Wales, how can I help locally? And Beth is saying that she's already helping out with us with the Project Siarc archiving project, but will there be other projects we could help out with in the future? And the answer to that is definitely yes. So we'll have the online stuff going on there to keep an eye on, but this weekend in particular, I'm going to share my screen again. this weekend, we've got the Great Easter Holiday Egg Case Hunt on Saturday, 9th of April, between 10 and 12 noon. We do have some spaces on some guided events, so there should be a link coming up in the chat if you want to join in North Wales. Then please join in on any of those, but we are encouraging everyone across Wales, wherever you are, or if you're beyond Wales, please go out and between 10 and 12 noon and collect as many egg cases as you can. Be sure to record them, and there'll also be a link in the chat now with the links to all of the resources that you need to do the Great Egg Case Hunt. So the ID guides, the how to do it, what to do when you bring it back, and although we're saying we're trying to get as many records as we can this Saturday, please, over the next couple of weeks and over the year, get out as much as you can to record these incredible things. But there is also lots of other things going on with Project Siarc. So in terms of the archiving project that Beth mentioned, there'll be opportunities for you to get involved with that. There'll be the Instant Wild, but also there's lots of other things that you can get involved with. And in the chat, there should now be also, oh no, I need to put that in the chat, is a link to the Get Involved page of Project Siarc, and in that you can put your name, some information about yourself, where you're based, and then you can tick box some of the things that you want to get involved with, and from that your details will go to the partner that's working on that element of the work that you want to get involved with. So I think that leaves me, unless Joe, Kat, Jake, you've got anything else that you'd like to say? But apart from that, I'd just like to thank you all for that talk. That's really interesting, and there's really nice comments as well. People are commenting about the talks and the work going on. I grew up thinking that I needed to go to the Caribbean to get involved in shark research. So it's amazing to have such exciting things going on right on our doorstep, and the fact that everyone here can get involved. So yes, thank you all. Please keep in touch, keep an eye out on all of the partners and the Project Siarc website about what's going on, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks all.